please introduce yourself by sharing your name and your age?
Of course. So my name is Beckie and I am 43 years old.
Can you tell us about your family and what makes your family unique or special?
Okay, so my family, I'm married. This is my second marriage, and between us we have got 5 children. So I've got my older daughter Lily. She would have been 16, so she passed away when she was 4 days old. Then I've got my son, he's 15. Then I've got my daughter who's 12. Then I've got my stepson who is 11, and my stepdaughter who is 10. And the reason that we are a little bit unique is between the 5 children that we've got is that my daughter lives with an additional need. And that's what makes us unique, I suppose.
Could you expand a little bit about what that additional need is?
Of course. So my daughter Lottie has got quite a lot of like medical needs, as well as ones that kind of affect her mentally. But her overall diagnosis is Jacobson Syndrome and ring chromosome 11. She also has bilateral cataracts. She also has low-level hearing loss. We are also waiting for potential autism diagnosis, and we are also waiting for potential social communication disorder diagnosis as well. So she also, because of her Jacobson's diagnosis and the ring chromosome 11 diagnosis, she was also predisposition to being diagnosed with cancer, which is what she had when she was 5 years old. So yeah, so she's been through the ringer. What I will say is, because everybody always asks, yes, she's fine, she's well, she's fit, she's healthy, and she's also a massive pain in the butt. So yeah, so that's Lottie.
How did you feel the day she was diagnosed?
The day she was diagnosed, it kind of came in 2 parts. So I say we, me, I knew that something wasn't quite right with Lottie, like her milestones weren't matching up to my son's, and also my background. I've worked with children since I was 15 years old. I'll let people do the maths on how long I've worked with children for, but I knew something wasn't quite matching up, and thankfully we had an amazing, and we still do have this amazing doctor at Great Ormond Street, and Lottie had been under Great Ormond Street since she was 10 days old for congenital hypothyroidism. And I kept saying to her, probably when Lottie was about 2, like, things just aren't right. They're not, she's not doing what she's meant to be doing. So we went in and we had a whole load of genetic testing done, because we needed to kind of almost like a bit like a dot to dot, kind of match up the dots to kind of get a picture of what's going on. So that was in the October, and then by the Christmas of, I think it was 2012, we got told that Lottie had got ring chromosome 11. So we were already like, okay, so we got part of an answer. And then it was only then in the April, then when me and my ex-husband were then called to the local hospital to have a discussion with the genetics counsellor, to be told that Lottie had got Jacobson syndrome as well. And obviously, because of my previous of already having a child that had died, not related to any other genetic condition, but that's a story for another time. I just felt like the world had fallen out from the bottom, and I was absolutely panicked.
Do you want to stop?
Panicked that the worst was going to happen, and that there was going to be some sort of life expectancy. And thankfully, she says, even though Lottie went on to have cancer, thankfully there isn't. As I say, having Jacobson's does come with a lot of issues. Medically, Jacobson's affects your heart, and it affects your kidneys, and it affects your blood. So there are things that we kind of have to manage on mainly the blood on sort of a daily basis, really, of sort of managing risk and what she's allowed to do. And so with managing that, she's been able to have a full life, really. Um, and even then, with the cancer diagnosis that kind of came later on, and we then found out that she was predisposition to it, it kind of spurred me on to make sure that she really did have the best, and it does have the best life that she possibly can. And I don't stop her from doing anything, even if my heart is in my mouth most of the time, because she likes to roller skate, and she likes to ride a BMX, and she likes to skateboard and all these other activities that other people probably wrap their kids up in cotton wool. I just let Lottie do them, because I think, you know what, if you only live once and you're only here, then go out and enjoy yourself, and I'll deal with the mess afterwards.
Is there any particular accomplishments or milestones that you're especially proud of in regarding Lottie's development?
There's I don't think there's one particular thing. And this may seem hard to say this. Lottie's not ever going to win a Nobel Prize, because there are so many challenges that are put in her way. But Lottie, on a day-to-day basis, is so kind.
What strategies or coping mechanisms have helped you navigate the emotional ups and downs of the journey of parenting a child with special needs?
I think what we use is just the fact that we have to give Lottie a chance to be able to respond to things and give Lottie a chance to process. So part of her Jacobson syndrome, and that's what I'll focus on, because I think that's the bit now, moving on from the cancer and the medical stuff that we don't really have a lot of involvement in. It's getting to grips now that she's going into being a teenager, of how we allow her to develop in the world. Whereas before, you know, even going back a couple of years when she was in primary school, I made all the decisions, and Lottie had no part of that, because Lottie didn't have the capabilities to understand what was being asked of her. So I guess now that she's older, and Lottie's also in mainstream school, that I have to give her the chance to be able to decide her own fate and her own way that she wants to do things. So it's about, I suppose, the strategies that we use is that it's ensuring that those that do come into contact with Lottie are respectful of the fact that she wants to make decisions about her health, and getting them to talk to her directly and giving her clear questions for her to be able to give clear answers, because Lottie doesn't process things in the same way as another neurotypical 12-year-old. So that's what we do, is we just say, right, Lottie, these are your options. Don't give her too many options. What would you like to choose out of that? And overall, she might not always like the options that she's given, and we still do have the huffing and the puffing like every other 12-year-old, but she's got more control. And I think it's really important going forward again, you know, when she's sort of 18, 19, 20, you know, and even sort of as a 30-year-old woman, hopefully, and she's out in the big wide world, that she's had enough time with mine and my husband's support to be able to gain that experience, to be able to live again that full independent life that she then craves. So that's what we adopt, is just the time, the understanding, giving her choices, giving her options, but not overwhelming her. And overall, it seems to be working.
I heard a phrase, nothing about me without me.
Okay.
When decisions are being made about young adults and teens who have special needs, which I think is very poignant to what you were saying. What has been the most significant challenge you faced up to this point?
The most significant challenge is getting other people to listen to me when I say that something's not quite right. Um, I don't want to badmouth anybody, so I won't go into all that. But sometimes it's very, very frustrating when, since Lottie was 5, 6 years old, when the cancer diagnosis came along, that I said she needs extra help in school, or she needs extra help with this, or I just need some reassurance, for people to actually listen to that. And I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day, like it's probably more my parental anxiety as opposed to Lottie, because Lottie's the joy of Lottie is that she's kind of blissfully unaware of the things that go on in the background surrounding her health and things like that, because she just comes to me and says, oh, I don't know, I've got an ache in my foot, or I've got a pain in my leg, and I'll just, oh, that's growing pains, or oh, that's, I don't know, you grazed yourself or something. And I'm not an over anxious mum in that respect, but sometimes I can't control how I feel, and so on a day-to-day basis, I'm probably like this. And then all of a sudden, without warning, Lottie might say to me, actually, I'm beginning to feel that there's something not quite right. And without any prior warning, my anxiety just shoots off the scale. And I do put part of that down to like kind of a PTSD kind of thing with having had a child that's died, but also getting people to understand that the worst possible thing did happen to Lottie, and that was she did have cancer. So I know that what Lottie likely may have with an illness isn't likely to be as severe as cancer again, well, fingers crossed, but you don't know. And so when I'm asking for help, or I'm saying that I'm struggling, for people to actually listen to you and take what you're saying seriously without brushing it off and going, oh, well, I'll find somebody else, or I'll wait, or it's like I can't wait, because I probably have waited weeks anyway before I spoke up. So now when I'm saying something, you may see that I'm being unreasonable. I'm saying I'm a mum that's asking for help and I'm desperate. And even if you just tell me that calm down and let me see if I can help you, or I want to listen to what your concerns are, that would make so much more difference than just brushing me off or telling me something that I know isn't true.
How have you balanced advocating for Lottie's needs within the educational system?
Um, it's been a tough ride. I mean, I can honestly say that the school that she is currently at, which, like I say, is a mainstream school, um, they do a lot to support Lottie. They really do, and I would like to think that we've got a really good rapport, and I've been very, very fortunate. Um, there is many flaws in the educational system, I think, for children with educational needs, sorry, special educational needs, and it's an absolute battle. And to get an EHCP is tough, and I don't think people fully understand even that when you've got an EHCP, that does not mean that you get the education you think you're going to get for your child. So yeah, from being in primary school to now, the move to where we are now locally, I've been very lucky with the teachers that have supported Lottie, but it hasn't always been that way, and we've had lots of people that have told us things that haven't actually been true, in again to kind of make me believe we're going to get something that actually we didn't. So it's a tough ride, and I hats off to anybody that does actually manage to get what they actually want for their child, but I bet you're very few and far between.
How do you approach explaining Lottie's condition to siblings and other family members?
Again, I think like my family as a whole, we've been really quite, we are accepting. Lottie is what Lottie is. Um, she's, as I say, she's got an older brother and two younger step siblings, and they've not known Lottie since she was a baby, but they've known Lottie since she was about 4, and they were like 3 and 2. So we haven't ever had to sit down and do the massive explain of what Lottie is, but they all know that Lottie has differences that we have to manage. My son in particular, because he's the older one and he lives with Lottie permanently, you know, with going up the park and things like that, which I encourage them to do, it's just about him knowing that if he's with Lottie on his own, who can he call quickly? What medication does he need to bring out with us or him? Um, Again, with if my parents or Lottie's aunt and her nan have her, it's about, you know, what do we do in an emergency situation, to enable Lottie to be able to have the life that she wants to have and do all the things that she wants to do. So I think overall, all family that's involved with Lottie do fully understand that Lottie has got some additional things, and they take that on board when they've got Lottie on their own, and they know that they can always get in contact with me, even if they're worried about something. But they all seem to understand it.
How do you manage the difficult days?
Um, I go to the gym. I go to the gym quite a lot. I realise I probably don't look like I go to the gym an awful lot, but I go to the gym and I roller skate, which people often laugh about. But it's I've got quite awful jobs, and so I say awful. They're very very rewarding jobs, but they're tough jobs. And what with that with Lottie, sometimes it can be a bit much, and so yeah, it's going down the gym and just having an hour and a half to just go and do something away from everybody else, and that seems to be my saviour, I think, really. Yeah, I mean, I would say that I probably drink alcohol as well, and I need a good Friday night out occasionally. That's because everyone needs to blow off steam.
What advice would you offer to other mothers who have children with special needs or whose child has just been diagnosed?
um, I think the reality of when your child has been diagnosed with something that you've not ever heard of, to try and do some research on it. There is a really, really fantastic charity that I used in the early days called Unique. Um, and they have got so many different disorders and genetic stuff and all matter of things that, and they're English back, well, they're England based, so the stuff is relevant to us, and I found that really helpful to kind of then being able to connect with other Jacobson's mums, because Lottie's diagnosis is a 1 in 10,000.
Wow.
And then to have with the ring chromosome 11, it's yeah, it kind of alters things as well. A little fun fact for you that actually with Lottie's Jacobson's diagnosis and the ring chromosome 11 diagnosis, and making her predisposition to getting diagnosed with cancer with having those two, it actually changed the screening process at the hospital that we used,
Right.
when Lottie was undergoing her treatment.
Looking back on your journey with Lottie, what do you know now that you wish you'd known from the beginning?
That it wasn't the life sentence I expected it to be. Again, with most genetic conditions, they're on a scale, and thankfully, Lottie's deletion isn't as big as others, and I am aware that there are children that have passed away from the condition because the defects have been too great. No, I suppose nobody really knows that when they're first told, but it's yeah, I wish that's what somebody had told me right from the beginning, that just because this is the life and the path that you've been put on doesn't mean it's going to be a terrible path. but the day I got told that's what I thought it was going to be. And yes, there have been bumps in the road, some huge, great big bumps, but we've also had a lot of fun, and we've really made the most of, every day's pretty much a fun day. Don't get me wrong, Lottie can be a little madam, and I do pull my hair out with her sometimes, but overall, we do lots of fun, exciting things, and yeah, that's the bit I wish somebody had told me right at the beginning, that just because you've got a child with a disability, that it doesn't mean that your life has to stop. You just adjust around it.
Can you share a heartwarming or inspiring story about Lottie that makes your heart sing?
Oh, there's just so many. Like, as I say, Lottie's just such a kind and considerate girl, and I don't think there's just one thing, because like most days I just look at her and think, God, I'm lucky. I'm really lucky. Um, we've spent a lot of time in hospices, um, just because, again, with her treatment, and even when she was going through chemo, she did a 5K for Keach Hospice, and raised money for that. Um, she's she's always looking for ways to kind of to help others, and um, she recognises that she's got additional needs, and she always tries to make friends with those that may be an outsider looking in. And yeah, and I think that those are the bits. So although I know that's not one particular memory, it's though I think that's just important, that she just does lots of things every day to ensure that other people are well looked after.
Do you worry about Lottie's future?
Absolutely. I worry about Lottie's future all the time. I worry about Lottie leaving home in the morning to go to school, because Lottie doesn't have a very good sense of danger, and she's too trusting, and she thinks the world is a happy, smiley place with rainbows and unicorns, um, which also makes Lottie a very, very vulnerable person. Me and my husband have talked about the fact that Lottie's future may be that she still ends up living with me when she's an adult. And I know that's not what Lottie wants, but that could be the reality. I also worry that, the cancer could return. I worry that, she's not going to get the job that she wants to be. She wants to massage famous footballers. So Lottie's got big aspirations, and those are the bits that I worry about, is that the aspirations and things that she has are going to be the ones that actually really hurt her the most, that she may not be able to get them. And that's not as me sitting there as a parent trying to downplay my child, but we also have to be realistic so that she doesn't get crippled by those unrealistic expectations. We had her a few months ago. She wanted to be a solicitor, which is fantastic that she aims so high. But I also know, through having done a degree myself, how much hard work that is. And bearing in mind Lottie is in like the lowest possible set at school, how realistic is that going to be? That will she even be able to sit GCSEs? Is she going to be able to study? Lottie doesn't like actually going to school for the work. Lottie likes going to school for the social, because Lottie actually really, really struggles with schoolwork. So then to be able to send her off to university where she's got no parental support, to then setting her up almost to fail with a course that she may not be able to complete, I, I feel is really cruel. And so that's quite hard to live with, that I have to keep telling her every so often that that's a really wonderful idea, but have we thought about a different way of doing things? So we're trying to look for ways that she can use what she's really good at, like swimming, to think about, actually, well, you really enjoy swimming, what could we do with that? So now she's actually thinking, oh, I'd like to be a lifeguard, and I'd like to teach swimming lessons. And I think actually that's that's much more achievable for her than setting her up for a high-flying job that even the majority of people that aren't neurodiverse struggle with.
Could you give me one word that would describe Lottie?
Kind. Just kind.
I'd like to say thank you very much. You've been very brave. Your story is very inspiring. So thank you very much for lending me your time. Thank you.